Last October, on a corn and soybean operation outside Grundy Center in Grundy County, Iowa, a farmer knelt in the stubble behind a dead John Deere S780 combine with a phone flashlight clamped in his teeth and 1,100 acres still standing. The machine had thrown a fault code at 4 in the afternoon, in the best drying weather of the season, and shut itself down. He was not thinking about the repair. He was thinking about the price the elevator had posted that morning, and how many bushels that price was worth per hour of daylight. He spat the phone into his hand and called the dealership his family had called for 58 years. A recording told him the service department would open at 7 the next morning, 91 miles away. Remember that distance? We'll come back to that. The invoice, when it arrived, read $21,400. But the invoice is not what broke him. The weight broke him, and the weight was not bad luck. It was the output of a corporate strategy with a name, a spreadsheet, and a decade of board approval behind it. This is the story of what that strategy cost, told through one family that finally wrote a check to a company from Bavaria. The farmer is a composite, assembled from documented cases across the Corn Belt, because his story is not rare enough to belong to one man. What exactly did John Deere have to lose here? Weigh the inheritance first. His grandfather bought the family's first Deere in 1966, a Model 4020, for a little over $9,000 in the money of that time. The 4020 was simple, strong, and fixable, with the tools hanging in an ordinary shed, and behind it stood a dealer in nearly every farm town who knew your name, your soil, and your loan officer. The promise was never just the machine. The promise was that somebody in green would answer the phone at 4 in the afternoon in October. 3 generations of this family paid a premium for that paint, and for most of those years, the premium was worth every dollar. But somewhere between the grandfather's 4020 and the grandson's $600,000 combine, the promise and the company that made it became 2 different things. Was last October the first crack, the moment a 58-year account began to die? Go back to 2017, when the local dealership, the one his father could reach in 20 minutes, was absorbed. Absorbed is the industry's word. In plain terms, Deere spent 2 decades pushing its small-town dealers to sell out to giant regional chains. So a store that once answered to a local owner now answers to a headquarters 3 states away. The parts counter in his town stayed open. The service trucks and the senior technicians moved to the hub store, 91 miles east. So the small problems started becoming events. In 2021, a sensor fault dropped his sprayer into limp mode, which means the machine deliberately slows itself to a crawl until a dealer's software tool clears the code, even after the broken part has been replaced by hand. That lockout is context here, not the villain. But it cost him 4 days of a spray window that lasts about 10. And what happens when routine stops being routine? In 2023, a transmission service was quoted at nearly triple what his father had paid for the equivalent job, and the first open appointment was 6 weeks out. He kept a notebook in the truck, 1 line per incident, dates, and dollars in pencil. Read back to front, the lines stopped looking like misfortune and started looking like policy. So after the combine sat dead for 9 days at harvest, did he storm into the dealership and cancel everything? Loyalty like his does not snap. It bends quietly for years, and the company holding it never feels the tension until the moment it lets go. What moved his hand in the end was not anger at all. It was arithmetic, and it is coming. But first, hold one question. If this was one farm's notebook, why was the same list being written in pencil in every county around him? This channel works through one machine class, one corporate decision, one customer at a time. If that is a story you want told properly, subscribe. Because the answer to that question was sitting in Deere's own investor materials the whole time. Why would the company that built a century of loyalty on service make service harder to reach? Step into the boardroom, and the logic is clean. What does a combine look like from up there? A sale that arrives once every 10 or 15 years, a rhythm Wall Street hates, because hardware revenue lands in lumps. Parts, service, and software subscriptions arrive every single year at margins the hardware could never dream of. So through the 2010s, Deere told investors that the future was recurring revenue, and it rebuilt the machine around that future. Dealer consolidation belonged to the same design. Fewer, bigger dealers are easier to manage, better capitalized for expensive diagnostic tools, and far more profitable per store. A network that once ran through well over 1,000 independent ownership groups concentrated into a few hundred, with the largest chains holding 50 stores or more. On the chart, every line pointed the right way. Margins up, recurring revenue up, efficiency per store up. Nobody in that room was trying to strand a farmer in a field in October. Somebody was trying to protect a number that already lived on a chart. The distance between those two sentences is 91 miles. The strategy worked perfectly, on its own terms. So what does a man do when the arithmetic finally turns against the paint he was raised under? In January, at a farm show in Des Moines, he did something his father never did once in 70 years of farming. He climbed into a cab that was not green. It was a Fendt 930 Vario, built in Marktoberdorf, a town in the Bavarian Alps, by a company that started in 1930, when Xaver Fendt bolted a diesel engine to a frame and called it the Diesel Ross. The Diesel Horse, a tractor sized for farms too small for anyone else to bother with. The Vario name refers to a continuously variable transmission, which means the tractor has no gears to shift. The machine itself constantly matches engine and speed, so it finds the cheapest way to turn diesel into work all day without the operator touching a thing, he noticed. But the transmission is not what sold him. So what did? A sheet of paper the salesman slid across the hood. Fendt calls it Gold Star coverage. For the first 3 years, every scheduled service and nearly every repair is included in the purchase, paid for by the company that built the machine. Deere would not put that promise on paper at any price he could find. Fendt printed it on the window sticker. That March, the green combine left on a low loader. And what did the switch actually cost him? The trade difference ran well past $100,000, but the expensive part was the phone call to his father. The line, he said, reconstructed here from the logic of the moment rather than any one man's mouth, was short. The paint did not leave us. The people behind it did. He said it standing in the shed, one hand on the doorframe, looking at the clean rectangle of concrete where Green had parked for 58 years. The grandfather's 40/20 stayed. It is not for sale. It will never be for sale. He was not alone. So how fast is the ground actually moving? Fendt spent 2 decades as a curiosity in North America after AGCO, an American equipment group, bought the brand in 1997. Since roughly 2020, it has been among the fastest-growing high-horsepower tractor brands on the continent, adding dealers year after year while the Deere network kept shrinking into fewer, larger stores. Deere still holds roughly half of the North American large tractor market, but the erosion shows up exactly where it hurts most. In the largest, most loyal, highest-spending operations, the customers a premium brand can least afford to lose, and the notebooks became public record, as complaints over repair access and service wait times pulled state legislatures, class action lawyers, and federal regulators into the same conversation. Why does any of this matter if you will never buy a tractor? Because the arithmetic that hollowed out Deere's service network is running right now inside the company that made your phone, your car, and your washing machine. When a dominant brand discovers it can earn more from your dependence than from your satisfaction, service degrades on a schedule you could plot in advance. Farmers are simply the early warning system because their downtime is priced by the hour in daylight. None of this has required you to know what a hydraulic line is. It only requires you to have trusted an institution that stopped earning it. Here is where the pattern should repeat exactly. Caterpillar. In the 1980s, a complacent giant, a hungry challenger, a decade of bleeding, then a painful recovery. So why does this story refuse to follow that script? Caterpillar lost customers to a rival selling cheaper machines and won them back by out-servicing it. Deere is losing customers to a rival selling more expensive machines with better service. Defection upward, away from the incumbent, and toward a higher price is the rarest failure in industrial history and the hardest to reverse, because a company can always discount its way out of a price problem. Nobody has ever discounted their way out of a trust problem. So why was Fendt the brand standing there when the window opened? Not because the tractors are prettier. AGCO made one structural choice. Deere refused to make. Fendt would not hand its badge to a dealer unless that dealer committed to dedicated Fendt technicians, mandatory training hours, and audited service standards, which is why the brand crawled across North America county by county instead of flooding it. And Gold Star quietly reverses the entire profit engine. When repairs are the manufacturer's cost, every breakdown hurts Fendt, so Fendt engineers breakdowns out. Translate the incentives, and the whole story collapses into one line. Deere profits when the machine breaks. Fendt profits when it does not. Everything else in this story flows downhill from that single difference. Sit with that fact for a moment. So what does John Deere actually still own? The sheds of the Corn Belt are still full of green, and they will be for 20 years. Because machines built on the old promise refuse to die, and loyalty measured in generations does not turn over in a quarter. Deere remains the largest farm equipment maker on Earth, but an installed base is the past tense of market share. The next check is the future tense, and on farm after farm, the next check is already decided, and it is not made out to Moline. Deere still owns the sheds. It no longer owns the decision. One loop stays open. The consolidation that pushed service 91 miles away also created a handful of dealer megachains so large that some now hold more Deere stores than entire states contained in 1990, and the biggest of them may now know more about what happens on those farms than the farmers do. What one of those companies is doing with that knowledge is the next video. If you want to watch the next domino before it falls, subscribe.